Hey, this is the Well Advice Channel too. What I want to talk about today is a topic of why conservatives ruin media. Okay, and when it comes to conservatives, I'm referring specifically to that branch of conservatives known as the evangelical Christian conservatives, for that matter. When it comes to the topic of why they ruin the media, and not just talking about why they ruin the media, but specifically why their points they make for it, or say the main point they make for it, is dead wrong. Okay? So now that I mention that, let's get started. So when it comes to, of course, the topic of Christian conservatives, okay, the evangelical Christians, not all Christians, but the hardcore Christians, when it comes to the topic of violence in media, is it ethically wrong, morally wrong, whatever you like to say, same shit. The simple answer is no. There is nothing wrong with it because it's fiction. Okay? Because the thing I've always noticed about this whole topic of is it okay to watch movies that are filled with violence and so on and so forth, okay? Sex, drugs, but specifically referring to violence for this video, okay? The thing I always hear all the time they always make, aside from the cliche thing that has been debunked so many times, the whole topic of does violence make people more, does violent media, I should say, make people more likely to be violent and just in general more violent, which has been debunked so many times, it's not even funny, especially when you take into consideration that over the past few decades, there's easily hundreds of millions of people that have been exposed to violent media over the past, you know, you know, for that period of time, and so on and so forth. You get the point. Hundreds of millions of people have been exposed to it consistently, and none of them actually do violent things. Once you get past that whole argument they make, and they make it all the time, the main argument, that they make that's also something they use all the time and is extremely freaking annoying is a topic of is it morally right to look at violent media? And the simple answer to that question is simply put it, why not? If some, because the thing is, in general, okay, there's a difference between looking at something that is fictional versus something that is actually happening in reality, okay? Anyone who uses their brain would know this, okay? No one is gonna watch, is watching, for that matter, especially in real life, would watch something of somebody, in real life getting killed, okay? Getting killed, like a gladiator game, like they did like 1,000 plus years ago in ancient Rome and stuff. Okay, no one's doing that anymore. Okay, and if there is someone who would ever do something that um wicked and evil, they would get made fun of so badly, and even just straight up insulted that those people would probably not even be able to like even speak properly and coherently for the rest of their life because of how badly they would have been told off. Okay, people who do things like that, especially when I was growing up, and even now probably, but specifically when I was growing up. But whatever, you get the point. People who do things like that get screamed at in their face and called a freak at the top of their lungs by people, especially women. So in short, no one's freaking doing that. No one would be stupid enough to put themselves in a situation that freaking dumb. Okay? And not to mention we have laws and regulations that prevent that from happening in the first place. Okay? So in short, no one is freaking watching actually people getting killed. What we're talking about right here is fictional movies where we have characters who don't exist, villains who do not exist, and story that relate to good guys taking out bad people anyway. So what exactly are these people complaining about when it comes to the moral ethical of this particular subject when it's clearly not real? Like, not only is it just freaking straight up stupid and annoying, for that matter, because like, how can you really talk poorly about something that is not real? It also comes down to the simple fact that it's also very hypocritical. It's just like those annoying pacifists, okay? Which, as usual, anytime a belief system is extreme, for that matter, like dumb, you already know it's already going to be full with a lot of plot holes and inconsistencies and stuff. Yes, they are extremely annoying. The type of people who think that, that people, who look at things that are violent, or even the fact that we even have militaries and stuff, it is a sign that somebody's apparently a psychopath. Like the type of people who like, who like when you're in a friend group, the leader of the group or some of, maybe your friends in the group, whatever, you get the point, will tell you like don't say every anything around them because you might say something and they might say something really nasty back, like they'll call you a freak or something, because they're like the type of person who hears something and they run off with it instead of actually analyzing things. Like those type of people. Those are the type of people pacifists freaking are. They're the type of people who hear something and they run off with it and they make strong judgments on people, and not just judgments but very nasty judgments on people for something they don't even know what they're doing. Those type of people, okay? These evangelical Christians, when it comes to this topic, are just exactly like them. Not only do they spew something that's bullshit, it's also hypocritical. Because just like war movies, for example, just like pacifists, and of course, most importantly, the main thing we're talking about here, evangelical Christians. Like they always go on these videos, always talking about why would people even look at stuff like this? Why would people watch this and this and that? This stuff is so sick and evil and blah 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 blah. The whole 9 yards. You hear all the time. But at the same time, the question is, why are you even watching in the first place? Just like back to what I was saying about people who always make these political statements for war movies. If you are so disgusted by seeing war and people getting killed and stuff, even if it's not based on real scenarios, like obviously World War I and World War II, and even something just based on like maybe a fictional civilization that exists in science fiction anyway, the simple answer is why are you watching those videos anyway? How can you really go judge someone and say someone is a weirdo and a creep and this and that when you are watching the shit yourself? And it's like all those crime movies and or videos that talk about Bloods and Crips and stuff like that and all that type of shit. Especially back in the days, people would always, um, those type of people at least would always say, "Why you always watch stuff that's like that? Like, why you look at things like that and all that type of stuff?" But at the same time, the question obviously comes up: why are you looking at it? Because you always see those people commenting on those videos saying, "Oh, this is this and that and this and that and this and that." Like, why are you watching it? That's a question I want to freaking ask myself. Okay, that's down to common freaking sense. Okay, and I'm not even getting a topic about is it morally right to watch videos about the Bloods and the Crips and all that type of stuff. What I'm talking about is the hypocrisy of those type of people. Okay, I have to hear this shit all the time, and they're bringing up the same arguments that have been debunked decades ago. The same stuff, just like the racist conservatives, at least, talking points that they make. Okay, if you're from Jamaica, and you're proud to be Jamaican, and you're American, how can you be loyal to both nations? What if a Jamaican America were to go to war? Like talking points like that have been debunked decades ago. Like it's so old and outdated. It's so easy to debunk because it's just a random hypothetical question that would never even really happen, and it's just so stupid. For that matter, because it can easily be disproven by using common sense. Like for example, there's a difference between your heritage that you're proud of, and of course saying you're proud of being from this nation as well. Like it's just so stupid. You can do both for crying out loud, okay? Especially when you take into consideration that Jamaica and America are allies anyway in the world. But anyway, like stuff like that is an example of what I'm trying to say. That's the type of stuff I hear all the freaking time. You know, stuff like that, at least when it comes to this particular topic. It's like you're making points that have been debunked decades ago, and they're still talking about the same freaking thing, and it hasn't stopped. It's the same points, the same this, the same that, and they're just doing the same thing. And you use reason and say, okay, like we debunk this argument, like violence. Violent. There's something wrong with watching violence in movies and stuff. It does not prove you're a psychopath or more likely to, of course, commit crimes and violence, and specifically the main one, which, as I'm certain we're all aware who watching this video, that it proves you're evil or wicked. Things like that, like those type of arguments that they make all the time. Those things have been debunked decades ago, and they're still making the same freaking arguments, and it's really annoying. So, in short, to answer your question, no, looking at violent media does not prove you're a psychopath or this and that, and that's why they ruin it. Because they bring up the same points and they try to pass legislation and just create more chaos and problems that we don't really do not need in the world. So and that's why they ruin the media, and also not just why they ruin the media, but also the point I made about the moral ethics of it is also dead freaking wrong. Okay, especially for a book that they can't even prove. And a lot of them actually believe the world's 6,000 years old. Like, okay, that's definitely bullshit. So that's the truth of the video. So this is my video. This is all I have to say. I just had to get some steam off because I have to hear this crap all the time. And all I have to say, simply put, is I hope you enjoyed this video. And just remember, if you like this video and videos like this, remember to thumb this video up and hit the subscribe button. And that's all I have to say. Simply put, I'm out.